Hey there, today I am going to be reviewing and sharing some of my favorite insights from Stillness Is The Key by Ryan Holiday. So I wasn't really sure how this book was going to be written because at first I thought, how much could you possibly say about stillness? But in true Ryan Holiday fashion, he put together this book beautifully. It is filled with stories from some of the most influential and successful people in the world, from the Stoics and Jesus to Winston Churchill and Napoleon, to Tiger Woods and Michael Phelps, and like everyone in between. So incredible stories that really drive home all of his points. So he breaks the book into 3 different sections: the mind, the spirit, and the body. Okay, so I'm going to share some of my favorite takeaways from each section of the book. So we'll start with the mind. The first point is limit your input. So he starts out the chapter with a quote from Herbert Simon that says, "A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention." He talks about how it's impossible for us to be happy when we are drowning in information. And he talks about the CNN effect, which is basically that we have access to way more information than we could ever use. And one of the stories that he shares in this section was with Napoleon and Dwight Eisenhower, and they had to essentially create systems to limit the amount of information that was getting to them and to their desk, right? Like they're making these incredible decisions every single day, and they had all this information coming at them. So what did they have to do to limit the input so that they could make the best decisions? The stuff that was really important, the things that are important, they can wait. They're going to stay important even if we allow some time. He talks about how there's a lot of ego involved with trying to stay up to date on everything. We don't have to stay up to date on everything. It's okay to not know everything that's going on 24/7. The next takeaway is start journaling. So he starts this section off with the story of Anne Frank and how she was given an autograph book when she turned 13 for her birthday, and she used it as a journal, as a way for her to get out all of those feelings and emotions. It's like a form of therapy when we're able to just write down all of our thoughts that are going on in our head, getting them out of our head and onto the page. And some of the most incredible leaders throughout history have journaled. People like Marcus Aurelius and Ralph Waldo Emerson and Ben Franklin and Queen Victoria. Some incredible leaders, because it is such a great way to bring stillness into our lives, because we can get stuck in our own head, and only by writing things out can it allow us to bring some of that peace and really help us make better decisions. I think one of the reasons why this takeaway was important to me was because while I have been journaling for many years, kind of on and off, it's only been recently that I have made it a true daily practice, and something that I make sure that I do it every day because I do find it very valuable. Okay, let's move on to section number 2, spirit. One of my favorite chapters in this section is called Enough. And it says that the need for more is often at odds with happiness. And he shares the story of Billie Jean King, the great tennis player. And she says that the mentality that gets athletes to the top is often the same that prevents them from enjoying the thing they worked so hard for, which is so crazy. Accomplishments alone will never make a person feel content. He says if you believe that you're going to one day feel like you've made it, like you've conquered everything, you've gotten to this level of success, and like you finally have that feeling of you made it, he says you are in for an unpleasant surprise, because that just doesn't happen. Ryan also talks about this idea where people say that, well, if I feel enough, then they are worried that feeling that contentment, it'll end their careers because they won't feel like they have to make progress. But that's just simply not true. Think about how much better our work can become if we feel we are enough, but we're striving to go after our goals. The second takeaway in this chapter is accept a higher power. So I did not realize this, but for over 200 years, one of the most difficult steps in the 12 steps of recovery has been acknowledging the existence of a higher power. And one of the most common objections was that they don't believe in God. But that's not the point. The point, it's not about God, it's about faith. It's about surrender. And so he talks about the Stoics and how they acknowledge that the higher power gives them access to that stillness that they need to make good decisions. I love that he talks about all different forms of religions and people and how it made an impact in their life. So he talks about the comedian Stephen Colbert, who was able to survive a really tragic childhood because of his deep Christian faith. He talks about Lincoln, how Lincoln, when he was younger, he was an atheist. And because of all the trials of his adulthood and the loss of his son and the horrors of the Civil War, he turned into a believer. And that really helped him. It restored their sanity. It helps keep them sane and more at peace. Okay, the third takeaway from this section is to bathe in beauty. Oh, I love this so much. And in this chapter, he talks about Anne Frank and how she was journaling about nature and how helpful it was for her to be able to look out this window and just see the beautiful sky and the sunshine. And she said that if all of this exists, how can I be sad? Nature was this kind of cure-all and this comfort that is available to everyone. And oftentimes we miss it. We just aren't looking for it, but there's beauty all around us. And so this idea of bathing in beauty and allowing ourselves to see all the things that are beautiful in this world, that are beautiful in our life, it brings so much stillness. And so we have to be conscious of it, and we have to make it a practice that we are allowing ourselves to breathe in all of the beauty that does really surround us. Okay, let's move on to section number 3, body. One of the takeaways in this section is to go for a walk. So simple, right? Yet we often don't do it. And this isn't anything about exercise. It's not about losing calories. It's about detachment and just emptying the mind, just going for a walk and noticing what is around us. I love in this section, he says, walk away from the thoughts that need to be walked away from and towards the ones that have now appeared. We have to allow ourselves to be still enough to have those new thoughts appear, and walking is such a great way to do that. The second takeaway is build a routine. I probably love this one because I am a very routine-driven person. I love my morning routine. I get a lot done. And one of the things that he talks about in this section was that some people think, oh, if I create a routine, that's just boring. But that's not the case at all. It's, he even says that some people say, well, isn't the whole point of getting to the point of greatness so that we can be freed from rules and we can do whatever we want? But the greatest leaders in the world know that complete freedom is a nightmare, and order is kind of a prerequisite to excellence. So turn your routines into a ritual. And when the body is familiar with those routines, your mind can relax. It can create that stillness. So there is so much goodness in creating routines in our lives. These are just some of the key ideas that I really enjoyed from Stillness Is The Key. Honestly, the entire book is so full of goodness. There are such great stories that really drive home Ryan's points. I highly recommend, pretty much anything that he writes. He is such a beautifully gifted writer, and this book will absolutely help to calm your mind, to live a happier, healthier, and joyful life. And hey, who wouldn't want that? I would love to hear from you. Which of these ideas resonated with you the most? And hey, maybe you've read Stillness Is The Key. I would love to hear in the comments what your favorite chapter was. What did you get out of the book? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it. And hey, if there is a book that you want me to review, add that to the comments. I am always reading and I love great book recommendations. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon.